Hello, everybody. You're listening to the Big Chill Podcast. This is episode 506, Football Fetish. Hello, Big Chillians, and welcome back to the Big Chill Podcast. I'm Frank, joined as always with Eddie. The classic underestimation of Liverpool. How do you feel about that, Eddie? Once again,
I didn't know if the question was coming.
That's the question is, once again, you've classically underestimated their ability to come and screw you in any sort of gambling scenario.
No, I don't think I really underestimated them. I mean, I consistently said it would be a very Liverpool-esque thing to do to play City and get a result. And I don't think now, and it just shows the overreactions you have within sports, right? Because a few days / weeks ago, maybe it was the end of Jurgen Klopp. They have the impressive second half performance against a pretty mediocre Rangers side, and then beat City in a match that they could have easily lost. Like, they played well in that match, and I was surprised, particularly defensively.
For bits, they played well.
Yeah, defensively they were pretty solid overall, but they definitely could have lost. I think a draw would have been the fair result overall on the balance of play. But now it's, Liverpool are back. Mo Salah's back. Like, it's 135 minutes of probably decent performances, and all of a sudden, everything is right back in the world of Liverpool.
Did you see the stat that after that match, Van Dijk is now still undefeated in 69 matches at Anfield?
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
It's surprising, but impressive.
Yeah, I thought that was a pretty telling stat.
Yeah, I mean, he's been terrible this season, right? So he doesn't have much to do with the fact that he's been able to maintain that so far this season, at least. But,
So my question to you is that a bigger result for Liverpool or for Arsenal?
I think for Liverpool. Ultimately, I think it's a bad result for Arsenal, right? Like, I don't think they're going to win the league. So I think if you are Arsenal,
still in first,
they are, but they've got a long, long ways to go, right? And I think maybe they'll prove me wrong. Their teams, it wouldn't be the first team to manage to do this, but I would be very surprised if they won the league. And realistically, I doubt very many Arsenal supporters at this stage, they're really buying into the hype. But I doubt many of them would agree with this sentiment. But realistically, it is in their interest for City to beat all of their competition for the top 4, top 3, top 2. And so Liverpool picking up 3 points against City is a bigger, it just means that there's a little bit more pressure on City, on Arsenal to keep picking up those big results. So,
do you think Arsenal is very concerned about a team 14 points below them, Eddie?
Liverpool have a game in hand too, as well, right? So
that's correct.
Could be 11 points, and then
talking double digits, Eddie, double digits.
A gap like that can close pretty fast. If Liverpool do re-find something resembling the form we've seen from them over the past 3 or 4 seasons, in the span of 6 or 7 weeks, it can suddenly be Liverpool 3 or 4 points behind Arsenal. So I don't think they're looking over their shoulders right now, but their goal coming into this season would have been top 4. I think that you shouldn't be really moving the goalposts at the beginning of October if you're them. And suddenly, I can understand internally them saying to themselves, you never know. We shouldn't limit ourselves by sticking to our preseason expectations. We should be judged. We're better than we thought we were, or a little bit more ready than we thought we were. At the same time, they've had a fairly easy run of fixtures so far still. They've yet to be seriously tested over a longer period of time. And I think I'd be amazed if they won the league.
So let's say coming out of World Cup, which pretty much, I guess, is almost right at the end of Christmas break, right? Basically.
What you mean when? Yeah.
World Cup ends end of December.
Yeah, so January when they.
So let's say start of New Year. Let's just keep it easy. 2023. what is your prediction for City, Liverpool, and Arsenal? Where are they going to sit?
So you
Turning
mean
into
going
the new
into
year?
going into the World Cup break? You're basically asking me
I guess, yeah.
because they're not
Pretty
playing
much.
during the
There's
World Cup.
there's
Right?
two matches, I think. There's two matches after
Yeah,
World Cup before.
but you're fundamentally asking me
Basically, yes.
and that's only a month away. So I don't think much will have changed in that space of time, just because there's not that many fixtures to be played between now and then. In terms of something radically changing. So I think the table will probably look somewhat similar. Liverpool will probably close the gap a little bit because, I'm maybe this is a slight. At least they might have a bit of confidence back. But I don't. Yeah, I think it's not a
You're
long
looking at like
enough.
4 or 5 matches.
Yeah, it's not a long enough period of time for anything to radically change. And elsewhere in the world of European football, yesterday we had the Ballon d'Or was awarded, which for those unfamiliar, it's kind of the award that gets given to the best player, and the winner was Karim Benzema, who, I mean, everyone knew he was going to win. There was also a leak of the votes going into before the ceremony anyway. So,
I love when things are leaked.
You never know with leaks whether or not they're real leaks or not. But he was the clear-cut favorite to win. And I don't think there's much to be discussed on that. I mean, the only discussion with regards to Benzema is he's done a wonderful job fixing his public image on the back of playing a role in blackmailing one of his teammates.
The back of what, Eddie?
On the back of attempting to blackmail one of his teammates with a sex tape, or protect his teammate from being blackmailed. Whatever it is he claims to have been doing, being complicit in the blackmailing of a teammate.
Something involving a sex tape.
Exactly. No, blackmail. The focus is blackmail. The sex tape, right? If it was just a sex tape of Benzema went public and it was just, him and his girlfriend, that's embarrassing, but it's not a scandal. The reality is he was some way involved in a fellow French international being blackmailed with a sex tape. He claims he was trying to help him not be blackmailed by helping him kind of resolve the issue as easily as possible. It's a very bizarre story, and depending on how much you like him, you can kind of see it one way or the other. But he's done a very, very good job of that not being the leading sentence in his biography, which I think for most people that would be the case. But there's not a lot to debate. He had a good season, obviously, with Real Madrid winning the league, winning the Champions League. He scored a lot of goals. So you can understand why he was sort of the talisman for Real Madrid over the last sort of 12, 18 months. Had some good performances for France also in that time period. So I do get it. However, you do have some complaints coming, notably from some defenders and goalkeepers in the world, including his Real Madrid teammate. So you have Courtois came out and said, I see the Ballon d'Or as impossible to win. You win La Liga and you win the Champions League. Your team wins thanks to your saves, and you only finish 7th. He's referring to 7th in the voting there. At least they created the trophy for best goalkeeper. So you kind of see this discussion a lot in a wide range of sports, right? It's like the NFL MVP award that heavily favors quarterbacks. You're probably never going to win the MVP as like a corner. It's kind of that situation. It's an interesting one in football. I mean, if you look back since the year 2000, only one defender has won the Ballon d'Or in that time period, which is Fabio Cannavaro in 2006. He won that in 2006 when Italy won the World Cup that year, and he was the captain of Italy. So he really had a strong case in that scenario for him winning. Now, the award has been dominated by Messi and Ronaldo since 2008. This is only the second time that someone other than them has won it in the past 14 seasons.
I think we did a little trivia on that probably last year.
But it is an interesting case to be had. Only one goalkeeper has ever won the Ballon d'Or, and that was Lev Yashin in 1963. So it is basically saying no matter who you are as a goalkeeper, no matter what you do, you're pretty much not going to win it. Which, I think it's worth debating because it is just one of those situations sometimes in sports, right, where attacking skills are favored over defensive skills when it comes to judging who the best player is. I think that's probably true in pretty much any sport, right? Hockey, you're the greatest hockey player of all time is always going to be like a more attack minded player. You're never just going to be like, well, that defenseman was, no one could get by him. People might acknowledge that, but they probably still wouldn't consider him to be the best ever. And it's just that weird way of like creating something is valued more than stopping something.
Yeah, and I think hockey, you can even get away with it a little bit because you see more defenders that can score than in European football, where yes, they do score, but not to the same extent that a defensive hockey player can put in a decent amount of goals if they're like a two-way player. But yeah, I completely agree. And I think, it's kind of like what you see with NFL with the MVP award, where it's just always going to go to the quarterback because, that's the most highly valued position, or at least thought of as the most highly valued position. So it's very, very rare that it's going to go to someone else. And I think that's kind of what you're seeing here, right?
Yeah, no, it's exactly the same situation. And it's just, and you can both, in some respects, right, the case is more logical in the NFL because it always becomes down to the MVP. Certainly, MVP is a term that can raise kind of more questions than it answers in some respects in terms of what does it mean? Does it mean the most valuable player isn't the best player in the league? Does it mean the player who made the most difference to their individual team? You can really get lost in that debate in terms of how you define who the MVP is. But certainly, at least in football, in the NFL, the argument for it almost always being a quarterback because they can have the most impact on the overall performance of their team makes some sense. Whereas I think you could make a strong case for the fact that a world-class goalkeeper having an unbelievable season could impact his team's results just as much as a goal scorer and might be even more difficult to replace. And, for anyone who thinks then goes, oh, that's not true. If you just think of some of the best teams in European football at the moment, a lot of them only managed to kind of hit their stride when they were able to solve the problem in goal. So City, for a long time, even once they were good, they kind of lacked consistency. And then you had Ederson come in, and since then, they've been able to become much more solid defensively. You've seen the same thing at Liverpool. And so, you just have these arguments where it's probably an undervalued position when it comes to kind of certainly voting for who's Europe's best player or the world's best player. And maybe on that note, can transition to the NFL itself and a season in which the reigning NFL MVP is off to a somewhat nightmarish start to this year's NFL season. So on the back of a defeat to a loss to the New York Giants in London, the Green Bay Packers then had, you said that Van Dyke hasn't lost at home at Anfield. You had a head coach quarterback combination in Green Bay who had yet to lose at Lambeau, and they got their first home loss against the New York Jets, which surprised us. We spoke about it as one we didn't.
In a game I said it was like the lock of a lock. No way that Rodgers is going to lose back to back to teams that he's probably inferior or superior to. I was shocked, and you know what, Eddie? I've been saying it for years. The Packers are overrated, and it's finally coming to fruition.
It was a mixed week for you, right? Because you've been saying two things for years. The Packers are overrated, and you might finally be getting it right. But I was patting you on the back.
The Steelers are still 2-4. Even with a win, they're still 2-4.
I was patting you on the back about the Steelers. We were basically handing you the trophy for that prediction, and the Steelers says, not quite so soon.
Yeah. Also a surprising win.
It was a weekend of surprises, right?
Yeah.
I mean, underdogs fared extremely well over the course of the weekend, but just in general too, just a very surprising weekend of performances. I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I saw one of the betting websites put up, had you taken for the biggest underdogs, which were the Giants 5.5, the Steelers 10, the Jets 7.5, and the Falcons 4, you would have paid 13,000 on a $100 parlay.
Yeah, I mean, we can all do that on Mondays, right? But no,
Yeah.
it was certainly a weekend of surprises. And I mean, I don't think there's too much to say about the Green Bay performance. It's clear that just everything is not right there. The one thing I would say is, I guess people are assuming that the issue is not Aaron Rodgers. He is 39 years old. He turns 40 in, he's not far off turning 40. In the same way that on the last episode, I think it was, we kind of discussed this idea that the success of quarterbacks early in their careers over recent seasons has led us to believe that every rookie should kind of hit the ground running almost and can play pretty much from the start. Tom Brady might have made us think that every good quarterback can play into their 40s, and we might not be appreciating just how much of an anomaly he really is. Is it a possibility here that Aaron Rodgers is just done?
Well, yeah, I mean, so I'll give my opinion and then I'll throw a somewhat hot take in there as well. If you watch the games this season, he does not look like he did 5 years ago. I mean, I watched the entire game with the Giants and he was missing passes. He had bad reads. He held onto the ball a little too much at times where normally he could, hit a check down. Part of that obviously is going to be the receivers, aren't the best receivers and maybe they're not running the routes properly or they just don't have that connection that he used to have with other receivers, and that's maybe making everything a tad bit slow. And then, in the NFL, when you're a quarter second, half a second too slow, it's an incomplete pass or it's a sack or something like that. I do think that a lot of this off the field personal issues is also starting to catch up with him at this
after
age.
What, 15 years?
Yes. No,
Finally.
I think at his age, when you look at Tom Brady, and maybe you can even say that about Brady this year, because you're seeing Brady this year isn't as good as he was the past 3 years. And maybe that's partly due because he hasn't been putting in the work that when Tom Brady, let's go just 2 years ago, Tom Brady was probably in the offseason every day working with his receivers, going through things. Whereas I don't think Rodgers has been doing that the past few years. And now he can't just rely on I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'll figure it out, I'll get it done on the field, because the age is catching up with him. And I mean, you can tell from, what you've read in the interviews and talking to other players that he wasn't out there extra working with new receivers. He knows he has new receivers. He could be out there working extra with them, getting them in the offseason, coming to places and meeting up. And he definitely wasn't. So maybe some of that off-field antics he has is starting to catch up with his age, and he can't do what he used to do with the type of practice he's used to having.
I guess the counter to that argument would be that Aaron Rodgers, over the course certainly of the last decade or so, has managed to be pretty successful with a pretty ragtag group of receivers. And so unless, and maybe this is the case, but from all of the impressions that I have, his approach to this season, drug use aside, was identical to his approach to every other season. Now, maybe,
but that's kind of what I'm saying is maybe he can't do that. Like you look at Brady, I think Brady figured out he can't survive in the NFL unless he has these radical changes and eating avocado ice cream. And maybe that works, maybe it doesn't.
Yeah,
that's a different debate.
Yeah,
but
I don't know. Yeah, I
Rodgers,
don't know if
I feel like Rodgers hasn't figured out like, oh shit, I'm 39 years old. I'm not what I was when I was 30, and I could just go out there and gunsling it and be in top physical shape.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, that is a hot take, so it's hard to say you're being too extreme because that's the nature of a hot take, right? But
yeah.
I mean, yeah, I guess the one issue I would say was the Brady thing. I don't think Brady does that because he thinks that's the only way he can be successful. I think Brady does that because Brady just loves doing that. Like I think he loves taking people to, whichever remote farm he goes to throw balls in the off season, or going down to Costa Rica. And that's what he does. Like I know. Wherever it is in Montana or wherever, and like Edelman turns up and they just throw balls.
Picture Edelman walking out of the cornfields into a farm.
A little bit. Yeah.
Like a field of dreams.
I think there's a case for Brady now. like I don't really like the level of speculation that's going on with regards to Brady and how much his family situation is impacting his play. Like I find that kind of actually, like I didn't even like that it's gone kind of viral on all the social media of him yelling at the receivers on the sideline during the loss at the weekend, and then people like doing the fake quote that he's saying like, I didn't leave Giselle and my kids to fucking lose to the Steelers. I don't like, I find that kind of difficult, if you see what I mean, like really taking pleasure in someone else's life being a bit big and not going through a great period is not
Yeah.
what I
Personal
love about
life.
Yeah, I don't feel like that should be
I mean, I think if a player
acceptable.
plays bad on the field, it's fair game. But if they're having
Yes.
trouble on the field, it's fair game for you to rip into them. If they're having trouble in their personal life, not
Yes.
fair game.
He's also not the type of character who would be saying something like that or discussing his personal life in general all that much, right? I think it's different if you open yourself up. Like, for example, Patrick Mahomes, as a result of his brother's behavior, can maybe get some criticism for still allowing his brother to do some of the things he's doing. But he's kind of inviting.
I haven't really seen his brother much lately, so maybe Patrick Mahomes has done something.
He was on the sidelines before the Bills game.
Was he?
Yeah. Not doing TikTok videos, but he was, when Mahomes came over to say hello to his wife, his brother was also there.
So, can't get rid of this kid.
But something like that element of your personal life, I can get that being brought up because it's like, well, look, you can just control this. Like you're kind of tolerating this. But yeah, when it's a marital issue or something with your kids, it just doesn't seem correct. I guess the issue with Brady might be he's always managed to maintain some kind of safety valve, right? Like if everything is breaking down, this is the player I can go to. And even when he moved to Tampa Bay, he still had Gronk there, right? And that relationship with Gronk, which is, he probably knew just, I almost, at this stage, he probably has a like near telepathic connection with Gronk. So even if everything else is going wrong, he probably knows, like, I know exactly where Gronk is going to be in this play. And so I can just kind of dump this off to him and get away with it. Probably doesn't have that right now. I think with Brady and the Buccaneers, they've had slow starts to seasons since Brady has moved down there. They weren't unbeatable at the beginning of last year, right? And so I still presume that they will be fine by the time the playoffs come around. I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl, but I think they'll be good.
So then you're more concerned about the Packers?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Like I can't imagine Tampa Bay not making the playoffs. Unless you tell me like Brady has a season in it. Like let's remove the possibility of any huge injuries happening to either of these teams. If you just tell me that the kind of status quo in terms of their rosters is the same from now until the end of the season, I would be stunned if Tampa Bay didn't make it. I cannot envisage it. Whereas I think the Packers are at serious risk of not making the playoffs through a combination of them being kind of bad and the Vikings just doing enough at the moment to win games. They're still not super impressive, the Vikings. So the only reason why I'm not completely shutting the door on the Packers is I can see the wheels coming off on the Vikings, and the Packers kind of finding a little bit of a momentum. And suddenly by week 14, 15, they're neck and neck at the top of the NFC North. And then, they are in the playoffs. But I think they're, of all the teams that I came into this season expecting to make the playoffs, I have the biggest concern for the Packers.
Okay. I want to go back to this Brady personal thing because a hot take that's out there, and maybe it's not a hot take, but I feel like it is a lot of people are like doing the like public applause for Giselle for standing up and kind of like standing up to Tom Brady and the type of husband and father he is. Is this a normal take or is this a hot take? Like out of all the years that I've heard of them together, it's always been they have a great relationship, a great family, and now all of a sudden that there's an issue and she's standing up and saying she's having enough of it. It's like, oh well, good because Tom Brady's a terrible husband and this and that. Like there's a lot of like Tom Brady's a bad husband talk. Where did this come from?
Yeah, it's difficult, right? Because the only really the issue here is that he wanted to keep playing football. I mean, as far as I'm aware, that's the only reason why he's a bad husband. She
Yeah.
clearly wanted him to
She put all of
retire.
her stuff on the sideline, waiting for
Did
him
she?
as like another take. That's what I think, right? Did she? I
I
don't know.
I feel like I mean she makes more money than him, right? I don't
Yeah.
feel as if her career has suffered, but perhaps it has. But I mean that's the nature of any relationship, right? I don't think she deserves an award. Like as far as I was concerned, they were kind of a good example of a fairly well functioning couple
Yeah.
between two famous people up until this moment. As far as from an outsider's perspective, who knows? Like very few people I think know any of the real details of exactly what's going on here. It's mostly just pure speculation. I guess it's difficult ground. It's difficult. It's a difficult topic for us to discuss because I'm sure there's an element here of people seeing this as a woman standing up for herself and not allowing her family life and her marriage and her professional life to be sort of dictated by her husband, or her husband to take priority in those regards. And you could argue that that is probably a good example to be setting to the world, and that, you know, it's high time that the focus has shifted away from what a man's career is in terms of a husband and wife. I'm not denying that. But at the same time, in a world where it doesn't seem like either one of them really needs to give up on their dreams, I don't see necessarily why Tom Brady absolutely has to give up on his. But I can appreciate that his living with him during a football season must be incredibly difficult. You know, in terms of he's almost never there, the need for him to focus and do everything. Like she's probably getting to she and her children, their children, are probably getting to interact with him 30 minutes a day. You know, like it's so I can understand her feeling like
Here's a question. How much time do you want to interact with Tom Brady on a daily basis?
if he were my dad, quite a lot.
Even if you were your dad.
But you know, I do get that. But and her argument would be, we have all the money we ever need to have. You've won everything you need to win. You can go and do other things. Like, but
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's the thing too. I will kind of side on that aspect a little bit. It's not as if once he retires, then for the rest of his life, he's the one who's just going to be at home all day, hanging out, being the family man, because he's just going to get a new job that's going to require him to travel 70% as much and be away 70% as much as he is now, doing like a commentary job or something
well,
like that.
not nowadays though, right? Like not if you do the Tony Romo approach. Like Tony Romo, because in the old days they used to fly in like the day or two before the game and meet the teams and like attend like a training session to kind of see things. Romo doesn't do any of that nonsense. He just comes in on the day of a game, leaves the night of a game. Like
Mike drops and leaves.
he's obviously watching, you know, game tape to prepare and having meetings and stuff. Like I'm not doubting it's pretty much a full-time job in terms of preparing for each weekend's broadcast. Like people think you're just turning up and talking, but a lot more is going into it than that. But same way people think that we just switch this on and talk, but they don't see the hours and hours of preparation that goes into each and every episode.
Do you know how much football I have to watch on a weekend basis?
I don't even like the sport.
I don't like sports.
If only we could successfully pivot this into a food podcast. But we've been desperately trying. So yeah, I get it. But I guess my argument with Brady would be he comes across like the type of person who would be obsessive and overly dedicated to whatever he does take on next. So that's where I do agree with you. Like whatever combination of things he does after he retires, I don't think he's suddenly going to be like just a stay-at-home dad with 6 hours a day. Like kids come home from school and he's just there to do homework.
Or even like a 9-to-5 dad who's still there every day making dinner 6 days a week.
No, just doesn't. I think he just, in order for him to be happy, he has to be, you know, really obsessed with doing something.
So you know that I love power rankings, and I know that you love power rankings.
Yeah, the stupidest things in the world.
Let me give you ESPN's top 10 power rankings right now.
I kind of glimpse these.
And I just want you pick out the 2 teams that you think are the most improperly placed, whether it's
Can I
too
tell
low,
you?
too high.
I glimpsed one
No,
of them.
let me read it for the reviewers.
Okay.
Let me read it
Okay.
for the reviewers
The
first.
reviewers? Are people reviewing us now?
Yes.
Oh, God.
We're submitting this for the award season. This is
Well,
our podcast episode for award season.
Okay.
Okay, number 10, going from 10 to 1. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 9, New York Jets. 8, Los Angeles Chargers. 7, Baltimore Ravens. 6, Dallas Cowboys. 5, New York Giants. 4, Minnesota Vikings. 3, Kansas City Chiefs. 2, Philadelphia Eagles. Number 1, Buffalo Bills.
So I have a
What do you
real
have
issue.
issues with?
I have a real issue with 3 of those. And
Okay.
I think you can probably predict which 3 they are. So I have a real issue with both of the the Giants and the Jets.
Okay.
This is to me the issue a little bit with power rankings. And I guess this is where again, it's a little bit like the MVP discussion. You need to tell me what you're doing with your power rankings. Are you trying to tell me who the truly best teams in the league are? Or are you saying, like, as of today, based on the body of work over the course of this season, these are like the best performing teams? Is it predictive or is it reactive? If it's predictive,
I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, I mean, because they're going to try and they're trying to be someone to everyone and they're being nothing to anyone. But
okay, so all right, so let's do your first one. You're arguing the New York Giants at number 5. Below you have the Cowboys, Ravens, Chargers, Jets, Bucks. Who deserves to be ahead of the Giants?
Pretty much all those teams.
I would say the Cowboys because the Cowboys did beat the Giants.
Yeah.
A very close game, but they beat them.
But I mean, again,
Ravens. The Giants beat the Ravens.
Yeah, but so the Steelers beat the Bucks. Should the Steelers be ahead of the Bucks?
No, because the Steelers also have 4 losses.
No, but I mean, how do you get to pick and choose the head-to-head when that really matters, when it doesn't matter?
Well, I think it matters when both teams have a substantially good record, and then you have something else to compare. But then, what are you comparing them to? The Eddie bar?
If it's my power rankings, then I would be looking at anything like I'm going to rank these teams in order of who I think the best teams are, and so that's going to take into account a little bit what they've done this season, but also, where I think they will be over the course of the season. I want my power rankings in week 7. 6, 7 to be a little bit reflective of who I think will be in the playoffs challenging for the Super Bowl.
But then how are you making that prediction of if they're good or not?
I look at their team. I go, oh, do I think they have a chance of winning the Super Bowl? If I don't think you have a chance of winning the Super Bowl, you're not in the top 6 in my power rankings. That to me is idiotic. So is anyone really telling me the New York Giants have a chance of winning the Super Bowl, like a realistic chance? And if you're saying no, there's no way they should be in the top 5 in your power rankings. Yes,
but I think at some point you have to look at how the team is actually performing on the field. No? I'll give you a good example. The Chargers have a stacked team right now. Everyone going into the season said the Chargers could be a Super Bowl winner, a potential Super Bowl winner. They look pretty shitty on the field.
They've had a lot of injuries.
At what point, though, do you say, okay, the roster's really good, but they don't play well, and therefore they're not competitive? How about the Bengals? Bengals are another decent example. Bengals have a good roster on paper, coming off a Super Bowl, coming off a deep run into the playoffs, and they do not look very good right now.
No, you know what I mean? I wouldn't have the Bengals in the top 10. I wouldn't have the Bengals in the top 10 in my power rankings. I didn't love the Bengals last year. I didn't like the Bengals in the playoffs. I didn't like the Bengals in the Super Bowl. So my consistency on the Bengals, it's been there. I might have been wrong on them last year, but I can't be wrong on them both years. So,
is this just you being super sour that the Niners are not in the top 10?
No, after the last week, I don't think the Niners can be in the top 10. I would have taken them out as a result of how that was. That's a couple of bad performances from them, and it goes back to there's just so many question marks over their offense. And in particular, I mean, we don't have to talk about that Niners game in any level of detail. It was just a bad performance. But the fact that they were down 16 and put together an 8-minute drive in the fourth quarter that just very slowly marched them down this like to have the ball, not be turning it over, but in the process be killing any chances you have of winning is spectacularly bad. So, those are the issues. Like, they are a very good team at the moment as they are currently playing. They're a great play from ahead team because their defense is so good and they'll just squeeze the life out of the game with their running game. But they're not a good come from behind team. And that's kind of always been a little bit of an issue with Garoppolo. And that I wouldn't put them in the top 10. But for example, what I would say this, if the Giants are fifth in your power rankings, they're 40-1 to win the Super Bowl. Go bet on it.
Great value.
Go bet on it. Who else have we got? The Jets. The Jets are 80-1 to win the Super Bowl.
Don't know about that value there.
You know what I mean? Like, these are, and I'm not saying that the power rankings should be like completely in step with what the odds are, but I do actually think there should be some association between what the betting odds are and what the power rankings are. Like, to me, there's a lot of overlap there in terms of sort of what they're trying to assess. There's factors that can't be accounted for, like the way money gets bet. Like, too much money is going to be bet on the Packers or the Patriots just because they are, or the Cowboys because they're really popular teams and people bet on them, so that affects the odds. So there's other factors at play. But if you're seeing a team in the top 10 who are, the Giants are like 20th in the betting, something's wrong there.
How about this one? Are you more convinced that the Eagles can be a Super Bowl reaching team?
I mean, they were really good in the first half of that game in Sunday Night Football. Like, that was a kind of statement first half where you're like, oh, they might be the real deal because the Cowboys have a really good defense and like a pretty decent offense. I'm still not sold on their offensive prowess, but it was, that when they were up by 17 points, it looked like a really complete performance on every side of the ball, and I was impressed. And then they had that second half performance, and
a little lackluster.
Yeah. And again, I think the issue with this season, right, is you can kind of pick holes in pretty much every team. So I shouldn't be any harsher on the Eagles than I am on, say, the Bills or the Chiefs. But
so,
yeah.
Then I'll follow up the Eagles with this question. Are they right now the favorite to win the NFC? In your mind, in the Eddie barometer?
No.
Who are you ranking still? What would be your ranking right now?
The Bucs.
The Bucs.
Yeah.
The team that can't score a touchdown to save their lives anymore.
I think their defense is really good, and I think they'll solve the offensive problems by January. And there's a little bit, right, of just, I know kind of what I'm getting with them. Like, I know that Tom Brady can make it to a Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like, this is the Eagles trying to do it for the first time. So I think it's natural to have a little bit more skepticism being applied to them because they're going to have to pass a lot of tests between now and the Super Bowl. They're going to have to win playoff games. They're going to have to win an NFC championship game. There's going to be a lot of moments when the spotlight's going to be a little bit brighter. And how much do they stand up to that test? How much does Jalen Hurts stand up to that test? You can't say, well, he was super impressive in week 3 against Team X, so of course he'll be able to replicate that in the biggest game of his life in January. Who knows? So unfortunately, when you're trying to do it for the first time, I think it's normal to just have a little bit more doubt.
Is it Bucs, Eagles, Vikings, or Bucs, Eagles, Niners then? I'm kind of with you. I will never trust the Minnesota Vikings. And at least the Niners, I know what I'm getting. I'm getting an offense that will try and establish the run and not rely on Jimmy G as much as possible, but a very stout defense that's going to be super aggressive. With the Vikings, you might get a 600-yard passing day for Kirk Cousins. You might get a 6 interception day from Kirk Cousins. I can't trust that.
and there's also, right, which is the other issue with like power rankings and predictions and reacting too much to what happens in the regular season. Football changes when you get to the playoffs, and the style of game and play that can be really successful in the regular season doesn't always translate to being really successful in the postseason. And so, not with my Niners Nation hat on, although it is literally on right now, but just from an objective standpoint, you know the way the Niners play is suited to a playoff game, to having a good defense, to running the, like having slow, meticulous drives, taking, just like taking the game away from their opposition. We've seen it for multiple seasons now. It converts well. Same with the Bucks. We've seen when they've made the playoffs, for the most part, their defense, when they won the Super Bowl, it was the kind of their defense that was winning that, right? It wasn't really their offense that was doing the heavy lifting there. And so I'm just a bit more, the Eagles feel a little bit, to me, they feel a little bit gimmicky in their offense, at least so far. Kind of feel to me like a sort of like a Ravens, where it's like, that this is great in the regular season, but we know what happens in the postseason. Like, might not be in the first round, but in the second round or in the NFC Championship game, you're going to come up against a team who shuts down the way you run your offense, and you don't have a way of beating them otherwise. That would be my concern.
Yeah, so we're pretty much 6 games in, and just to kind of, I know it's tough because in 6 games you might have had an easy schedule or hard schedule, so it's a little tough to judge. But you have the Bucks, who are 20th in points for, but 5th in the league in points against. So defense is good. Offense needs to figure it out. I'm kind of on the same page with you. I think they will figure it out. I don't think Brady is all of a sudden just going to crumble.
And if they need to,
and
right,
they're injured. They have some injuries.
Yeah, they have injuries in key positions. They're going to sign someone too, right? We've seen that every season. Whoever it's going to be, I don't know. Is it going to be OBJ? Is going to be suddenly there with the Bucks in the playoffs, maybe? Or Gronk comes out of unretires again, or Edelman unretires. Like, the version of them that we see on offense in the playoffs is not going to be the same that we see right now.
And then you go to the Niners. I think a similar story. Defense ranked 2nd, points against. Offense ranked 19th in points for. That's one where I would side with you. I think the Bucks are a better contender compared to the Niners, because I don't know for sure the Niners are going to seal up that offense.
No, they probably.
I don't know how, to be honest with you. I mean, maybe you just really establish the run and rely on it like they were towards the end of last season and into the playoffs, where you kind of just hope for that. But I don't know.
The only positives is, if you're trying to be super positive, you would say Garoppolo, as much as he knows this team, wasn't working out with them up until the Trey Lance injury. So maybe it's going to take him a little bit of time just to properly, it might take him 6-7 weeks to really feel like he's back in rhythm, because he was just throwing the ball to who knows who. Up until that point, he wasn't taking any snaps in training. So there's that element. Kittle was out for a bit of this season, and you know how important Kittle is, both as a receiver and also as a blocker in the schemes that they have. So both from both the pass game and the run game, he's pretty important, and having him back and getting back into up to full speed is important. And then you might argue on the back of the contract negotiations that maybe they aren't using Deebo Samuel in quite the same way that they were in seasons past, but that in a playoff
maybe that's
game,
not yet. Maybe it's one of those things, just holding them back. So I can honestly see that.
it's like you've told him and his agent, like, no, we're not going to run you into the ground in week 7, but in January in a playoff game, you might carry the ball 20 times. Like, that might just be what we need. And he might have signed off on that, because he would say, I'm worried about the long-term wear and tear, and that's probably not going to come from a playoff game. So those are the reasons to be optimistic, but I do agree with you. There's no real reason to be confident that those problems will get solved.
And then you go to those other two, and you have the Vikings 14th in points for and 21st in points against. So just middle of the pack in both, and that's the thing, right? They're 5-1, but when you really think about it, they don't look great on either side of the ball. And their only loss is to the Eagles team that pounded them. I mean, that was 24-7 loss. I mean, that wasn't close, that game.
Yeah, and even you don't really know which version of them is going to turn up. They've had a couple of lucky wins. Their win in London was lucky. They nearly blew it. What was that, to the Jets a week ago? Where they, they've had they don't have complete games.
You're talking about the Bears.
The Bears, yeah, when they had the kind of 17-point comeback. So they as they've kind of I've been less impressed with them this season, even though their record is better than I've been with them in previous seasons. Because I always felt like in previous seasons their defense was super good, and you kind of knew you were getting a really good defense, and their offense had the potential for being explosive but wasn't consistent. And now I just feel like their defense can get kind of good, but it's not consistent. Their offense can still be explosive, but it's not consistent. So I feel less confident about them.
Yeah. And then lastly, you have the undefeated Eagles, 4th in scoring and 6th in defense. So pretty good. But then again, you look at their schedule and they've played one team or two teams above 500. The Vikings, who they beat, and the Cowboys, who they beat. But, haven't had the toughest schedule. So maybe that's slightly inflated. But I am more confident in the Eagles than I am in the Vikings, I think.
At what point do you think the conversation starts to happen about whether or not the Eagles can go undefeated?
Well,
because you look at their schedule. They play
the next four, we just did this, I think, 2 weeks ago, but Steelers, Texans, Commanders, Colts. That puts them at 10-0. I think
at that point, you have to have that conversation because they don't have any clearly obvious losses on their schedule. Like they don't have the Bills or the Chiefs or someone like that where you would be like, I expect them to lose this. They are all very much winnable games.
Yeah. In an NFL that's unpredictable, it's tough to say easy and hard games, but I will say their 3 potential losses left are probably Packers, Titans, Saints, and maybe Cowboys. The Giants in one of the two. Maybe the Cowboys.
Yeah, Cowboys with Dak back, you have to assume is. I mean, the one thing I guess you could say is there's a chance that they're favorites for all of their remaining games.
Yep.
From a betting perspective.
And I guess going to the AFC, I think the only real talking point is Chiefs-Bills. And, that kind of went how we both discussed, how we thought it would go. And I think we talked about what team could benefit from that win more and how. And I think the Bills definitely, I know they won the game, so they come out the victors, but I think from more of a moral and mental standpoint, I think they come out the winners because they gave the ball back to the Chiefs with time left. And, the Chiefs are the Chiefs, and they're always going to drive down the field, and they didn't. They shut them down. They stopped them. They intercepted Mahomes, and, they put an end to it. And I think that's got to feel good for them to know to be in that situation because it's going to happen if they meet again. More than likely, they'll be in a similar situation where the Chiefs have the ball with a chance to win, and knowing that they've stopped them once, that they can do it again.
Yeah, I don't think it even has to be as highly specific as that. I think it's a question of them winning a close game against a good team. And they don't have that in Josh Allen's time with the Bills. They just don't have a lot of those wins on their resume. And so I think they can take confidence from that and know if they're in a close game in the playoffs that they have the ability to push through that. And I think it remains a little bit of a question mark with them because they still weren't super convincing in that fourth quarter. They could have done that a little bit more easily than maybe they did. But it's still, and I think if you're the Chiefs, it's disappointing, but they probably don't. They're not going to read too much into that. They'll feel as if it was a close game, almost a coin flip in terms of which team won it. Had a couple of things gone differently, they win that game, and they know how good they can be. So I don't think they're ever going to doubt themselves in a playoff scenario, right? So, yeah, I think it was much more important if the Chiefs had won that in either with a game-ending drive or if the Bills hadn't been able to get the touchdown to retake the lead in the fourth quarter, I think if you're a Bills fan or a Bills player, you may be starting to think, oh, we've not got this in us when it's a really tight situation. Like there's just not that kind of clutch aspect to us. But they at least removed some of those doubts for now.
Last question from me. Is Josh Allen the best QB in the NFL? Is this the year the tide has finally turned?
I think he'll win the MVP. I think at this point, actually, the only person who might be able to beat him to the MVP is Jalen Hurts. You know what I mean? Like if the Eagles go undefeated, you have to assume Jalen Hurts wins the MVP. Like it would be crazy if they're undefeated and he doesn't win it. So I think he is the most likely. He's the person best positioned to take it away. But I think Josh Allen will win. I don't know if he's the. I mean, question is like if you're asking me, do I think he's the best? It's like if I had to put my life on one quarterback, like down 6 to drive down the field, who am I choosing? I think it's still Mahomes. So, he's in the discussion. And there's other quarterbacks in that discussion too. Like you could still argue maybe it's
So
Brady.
let me slightly adapt that scenario. Not just one final drive, but one complete game. Because I think that is kind of the knock on Mahomes, right? Is he can always step up and rise to the occasion, but he'll have just sometimes in a game where he makes 2 or 3 bad throws. A lot of times he get lucky, they don't get picked, but sometimes, I mean, that interception at the end of the game was just a dumb throw he made. He shouldn't have made that throw. And so I think from a whole game standpoint, you're in the Super Bowl. Who do you want as your QB?
I still think Mahomes. It kind of goes back to the discussion about the Eagles. He's won a Super Bowl. I think that's important. I've not seen Josh Allen play in the Super Bowl, so I don't know how he will stand up to that kind of pressure. And as far as the other difficult thing, I think the Bills are better than the Chiefs. So in this, which is probably the first time saying that as a complete team, that they are better than the Chiefs. And so he has the easier situation. Like the Chiefs defense is definitely a lot worse than the Bills defense. So Mahomes had to try and succeed against one of the best defenses in the league on Sunday, whereas I think Josh Allen was up against a mediocre NFL defense. So he was I think Mahomes was legitimately playing the Bills defense, and Josh Allen was playing Mahomes. If you see what I said, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. Brady and Rodgers, though, out of the discussion.
I mean, Rodgers, yes. Right now, yes, he's out of the discussion because this is too bad of a start to the season for him. I don't think he can ever take Brady out of the discussion. I just don't think he can. You know what I mean? Like, how could you possibly take him out of the discussion? Every time you take him out of any discussion, he proves you wrong.
He puts himself back in that discussion.
He does, though.
I know.
Like we could be saying all of this, and come the end of the season, the Bucs have won a Super Bowl. Like it's not impossible. And then you go, oh, isn't that crazy? Tom Brady's still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Yeah. So, yeah, I will never. Tom Brady could be 75 years old, and I'm probably still considering him as a possibility. It's like the Michael Jordan element. They're still part of me. I know Michael Jordan's 60 or whatever he is now, and probably can't dunk anymore, and his knees are shot, and he's lost 15 steps in terms of speed, but still, gun to my head, I've got to pick a guy, to make a game-winning shot or win a game of one-on-one, and I still might, like, Jordan's in the discussion because it's just the mentality, and that there's that, you can't underestimate that element.
What a disrespect to Jordan, 60 years old. He's 59.
He would probably be upset by that.
I'm sure he would.
If he ever hears this, he's probably putting me on some shit list of guys he has to prove wrong. Speaking of aging athletes, and to make a big transition from the world of professional sports, the world of sports in which I operate at the moment. This was the final week of the Paris Fast Pitch Softball League.
I was like, where the hell is this going? Fast pitch is a little fast pitch by 80-year-old men.
No. I will tell you, since you played in the league, some of the teams have significantly improved, are way more professional, I'll say, like in terms of how much they train and they're playing year round. For starters now, they all have really nice uniforms. Like when we used to play against to explain this league to people, it was originally started in the 50s as an all Japanese league.
1850s.
When there were a lot of Japanese teams Japanese businessmen basically in the Paris area. So I think originally it was comprised of 36 teams of only Japanese players. And then as there began to be fewer and fewer Japanese people in Paris, they started to open it up to other sort of nationalities and ethnicities. And then it kind of transformed into this weird international league where teams are sort of defined by your nationality. So there is an American team. There are still 3 Japanese teams. There's a Filipino team. There's 2 Dominican teams, a Venezuelan team. There's a whole mixture of teams. The Dominican team this year had a lot of very good players. The Venezuelan team this year, this is no joke, had 2 former minor league MLB players. And when I say former, they were in their 20s. These are guys, they had been minor league pitchers from Venezuela who had been drafted into the majors and played in the minor leagues for a couple seasons, hadn't worked out, and now they're in Paris doing stuff.
And now they've been recruited to play in the Paris Fast Pitch Softball International League.
The Dominicans and the Venezuelans,
poor guys,
who made the final. We were in the 3rd and 4th place game on the final, kind of like finals day. The final was after us. The final was legitimately. I mean, there were some good players playing. Like there was a lot of talent on display in the Venezuelans against the Dominicans. Got very heated. The way the league also works is that, I mean, there were about, I don't know, 100 Dominicans showed up to watch this game. They have a generator going. They're blasting Dominican music. Had
a generator. That's great.
They've
got power.
Venezuelans had, I don't know, 50 or 60 people in attendance. They also had their own speaker system, but it wasn't as loud as the Dominicans. So there was this like rival.
No music. Generator.
No generator.
They were just running on batteries, running on D batteries. What an amateur move. Why do you bring D batteries to a generator party?
Yeah. But the way the league works is that some representatives of the non-playing teams umpire the other games. So I was the home plate umpire for the final. And it was to be expected that in a game between the Venezuelans and the Dominicans that things got a little bit heated. About the 3rd pitch, things started getting a little bit heated. And in a never-before-seen set of circumstances, the home plate umpire was replaced in the 4th inning.
Why was he replaced?
I think I was, the Japanese guys who run the league, who don't really understand, everything's going on in Spanish and English, so they don't understand anything that's going on in terms of the arguments. I think they presumed that there was a full-on physical fight that broke out at one moment between 2 players. It required about 30 people from each team to pull off these 2 huge guys. It was not a pretty sight. I think they thought that was because of one of my calls. It was just because they'd been insulting each other all game. Like they weren't that heated over whether or not a guy was, correctly called out on a tag at home plate. So I was asked to no longer umpire and was replaced. Which then led to, because the Dominicans and the Venezuelans complain about everything, then both teams complained about the fact that I had been removed as the umpire, which I loved because they'd been complaining about my umpiring, and now we're both upset that I was no longer umpiring. But yeah, it was. There are some legitimately really good players playing on their teams at times, and it does make you wonder. I mean, they're guys. So, some of them are just huge in the way that like baseball players are just big guys.
Forearms.
Yeah, they're just big people. You got like guys striding up to the plate who are 6'6", just massive hulks of men, and hitting a softball miles. But
well, unfortunately, we don't play our intramural softball until the spring, but we are starting up our kickball team for our graduate program, a sport that I don't know if you call it a sport, a game that I am awful at.
I don't understand the sport of kickball because I don't understand how it's hard. I think if you've grown up kicking a ball, I think part of what makes kickball kind of work in America is that a lot of people didn't grow up kicking.
That's why I'm not good at it. I can't boot the ball far, or I can't place it where I want over someone's head, But I don't understand. From a field perspective, I'm fine. I can catch a ball really well. I can throw a kickball really well still. That translates.
But yeah, I don't understand. Whenever I haven't played kickball since I was a kid, at school in the U.S. when I see videos of people playing kickball as an adult, like I don't understand how I would, and I don't mean this. This isn't. I really don't mean this as some huge overstatement. I don't understand how I'd ever get out. Like how I couldn't just kick a single every time. You know what I mean? Like I just,
Yeah.
it's difficult for me, for those unfamiliar with what kickball is, because a lot of our non-American
It's
listeners,
softball, but you roll the ball onto
or
the
baseball.
ground.
Baseball's a better comparison because people
Okay.
might not even know what softball is. But it's
Well, I
like,
was just coming off of softball.
I know,
We
but
just talked
already,
about it.
I know, but already some people will probably listen to that and be like, I don't know what softball is. And softball is just baseball on a smaller field with a bigger ball and pitched underarm for those. And kickball is then that with an even bigger rubber ball that you roll towards a home plate and the person has to kick it. But aside from that, pretty much identical rules. And yeah, I don't understand how you can't just be like, yeah, I'll get a single. I'm not going to say I'm going to smash a home run every time, but I think you could just be like, oh, I just kicked the ball into that gap right there. No problem.
Well, the last time we played it as a team, every student just ended up popping the ball up. So we had a no ball in air rule where every ball had to be kicked on the ground until we were good enough to advance to kicking the ball with some sort of loft again.
Wow, that's sad.
That's how bad our team was.
That's sad.
Yeah, it was not a good team. You'd
Well,
think for a group of physiology students, they'd have some physiology-ness to them, but not really.
Well, if you want to draft me in, what months does this league run for?
It's for next few months.
Okay, well, who knows if I can make it to Arizona? Am I eligible to play?
I'll make you a fake student ID.
Oh, the scandal that could break out when I hit the game, the championship winning kick, and then it all unravels as they realize I'm not a real student.
Your accent's going to give it away.
That will be the giveaway. Not the. I've never seen you around here.
No, it's a big campus. There's like 40,000 people.
All right. Well, I guess that pretty much. Anything else do you have from the world of sport?
Not particularly. I mentioned this to you off podcast, but I'm very excited that we've opened up a British pub right off of campus. That just looking at their schedule, they're making a good effort to be open for Premier League and also to have it on, which is like but I mean, like, honestly, like if I went to any other bar that was like open for brunch, let's say, because most matches are going to be early, there's a very little likelihood that they're putting on a Premier League match.
But they're not open for, say, the lunchtime kickoff. Like they're not opening at 5 in the morning.
I mean, the lunchtime kick. I'm not even awake for the lunch.
Well, no, I know, but I'm just saying they're not that dedicated.
Oh, no, it looks like, I think they said the next one. So there's 3 time slots, right?
On a Saturday, yeah.
Yeah. So they'll be open for the one that starts usually around like 7, 8 a.m. my time.
The 3 o'clock kickoff on the English, like the main kickoff slot.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess
it's still pretty good, though.
That's also good for you too, right? Because you got the World Cup coming up. So
yeah, and they have exactly, and they have full English breakfast with black pudding, supposedly, which I have yet to see in America.
Yeah, it's not something Americans don't.
Yeah. I'm sure someone's gonna say, well, you haven't gone to this bar in New York City that has black pudding. Okay, well, whatever. But like I'm sure there are bars that serve it, but the majority of times when you go to like a pub in quotations in America, they'll have English breakfast, but it will not have black pudding on it.
Yeah, and I guess you'd have
which I enjoy.
Purists would say it's not like a required component of the English breakfast, but yeah, no, I do. I think when Americans, once they are told what black pudding is, oftentimes they lose their appetite for it.
I had more of an appetite for it once I knew what it was.
just give me the pig's blood raw. Well, hey, maybe that allows us to transition into a world in which I'm sure pig's blood was very popular, because we could maybe discuss the latest developments in the House of the Dragon.
Oh yeah, episode 9. So we haven't been saying spoiler alert, but maybe we should. If you're not caught up to episode 9 of Hot D,
it's true, right? We do it at the very end of our episodes, and if you don't realize there's spoilers once we start
Yeah.
doing a recap of what we thought about the episodes, then yes,
Someone did say something to me, so I'll just make sure from now on we say it.
All right. Spoilers upcoming.
Yep. Up to episode 9. Not a tradition. So I know you never watched the original Game of Thrones, but not a traditional penultimate episode for a Game of Thrones because not much happened. And it was more of a setup episode, which is kind of the opposite of what they normally are.
You really think not much happened?
Well, I mean, in terms of like
compared with the season episodes, compared with the season so far.
Yeah. No, I actually really enjoyed this episode. But I mean, compared to Game of Thrones, the penultimates were always like a 40-minute battle scene, or like action wise, it was the biggest episode. And actually, we can get into what I think the weakest part of the episode was, and why I thought it was, and why the showrunners did what they did. But I mean, right off the bat, we got to be going with, here's my question for you, Eddie. Does he just have a foot fetish, or is it because he's got a messed up foot that feet are just attracting to him?
Yeah.
So, that was my biggest question when that scene unfolded. Is it because like he's got issues that attracts him, or is he just a guy with a foot fetish and he just happens to be crippled?
Yeah. So once again, Game of Thrones not making disabled people, handicapped, whatever term you want to use, not fully abled people, not making them look great. The show does try and make them all look like slight weirdos, but I presumed my take on it, because they focused in on his club foot first and then he masturbated with her feet out. I took that as there was some kind of link between him not having like 2 normal feet, and then seeing, like focusing in on that as a fetish. But yeah, it was a.
When did it click for you? Was it the instant she took her shoes off, or was it until she took her socks off that you're like, oh shit, this is getting weird?
It's when the feet were, it was when she took the socks off.
Full exposure.
Yeah, just taking the shoes off. I didn't actually read too much into that.
I thought it was just like relaxing.
Yes.
She was able to like put her guard down, is what I thought at first. I was like, oh, look, they've developed this relationship. She's put her guard down. That might be bad. And then it was like, oh, wait, no, it's bad for a whole other reason.
He's really putting his guard down.
Yeah. He's putting his guard up.
Yeah, exactly.
He's putting his guards at full attention.
I guess multiple?
Who knows?
Is that his other
Game of Thrones. Now, did you also notice?
Now, that's an interesting question. Say if he has 2 dicks and a club foot, which one is he getting more known for? Are you like, that's Clubfoot Gary over there, or you're like, that's 2-foot Gary, 2-dick Gary, 2-dick Gary over there?
Considering his name in Game of Thrones is the Clubfoot, I think we're going to go with Clubfoot.
No, but if he had 2 dicks, he might have been double dick.
No, that's just, there's 2 twins, both named Richard, similar to the 2 twins that are named Eric and Arik. Also very confusing in that episode. But did you notice at the end of that scene, the beginning of the next scene is Aegon like sopping up some like white sauce on his plate with his bread? Did you notice that?
No,
that is a classic Game of Thrones. They do that for like a lot of things, where like someone's head will get chopped off, and then the very next scene will be someone like pouring wine down their throat or something. They love to do that kind of stuff.
No, I did not catch that. But
quite
I guess my quick thoughts on the episode. Again, the weird aging continues to be a slight issue for me. We just have to accept that at this point. I enjoyed this episode a lot more than it's probably the episode I enjoyed the most out of the season so far, just because things actually happened. And there was you felt like all of this boring political setup finally became worthwhile. My biggest issue with the episode itself was their ability to have a coronation that was so well coordinated in the space of, what was that, 12 hours?
I'm going to say it was the next day.
Even so, impossible. Everyone knew what they were doing. Like there were multiple people speaking, people who wouldn't, you could maybe argue that, I don't know, some people in the background would have been preparing for that moment their whole lives, like with the way that, they had all the ceremony down for when the queen died. But you had people who you wouldn't have expected to have been playing crucial roles suddenly having to say things and knowing exactly what to say, whatever the Queen's Guard guy, you know, he kind of plays a role in putting the crown on the king himself and then making some announcement. How did he know what to do?
It's true.
He's never been to a coronation before. Wasn't alive when the previous one happened.
Even like as the swords went down as they passed.
Yeah.
A little, are we sure we practiced this enough and someone doesn't prematurely slice off a part of his back or something?
Yeah. I also took some issue with that. They kind of moved out and started forming this corridor. There clearly weren't enough of them to form the line all the way through the crowd. Yep. But at one moment you saw a complete line, but then when he gets to the front, the line is like moved.
And what happens at that 90-degree angle? How does the sword drop work there? Yeah. That's a tricky spot to be in.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think this was probably the best episode, but I think to me, I think you're going to look back, not you personally, but people will look back and say, this is the real first episode of the show because this is the beginning of the Dance of the Dragons. The king is dead and now the civil war is going to begin. And the previous 8 episodes were all just trying to build on some characters to make it more meaningful as the seasons progress. And the question I think is going to happen, maybe once we're into the second season, were those first 8 episodes, did they pay off?
No. Because I feel like so much time was dedicated to people who then aren't meaningful now.
Yeah. Like the king.
We didn't need to know the king as much as we did. We didn't need to kind of process his dilemma. That could have been done in almost a single episode. We didn't need to know the gay prince that much. I mean, maybe he comes back into it at some point, who knows? But like, I feel like a little bit too much time was probably dedicated to him and that whole household for the most part. Like they're just dying off and we had time that we spent sort of getting to know them. We don't really know the kids to any great degree. We've just seen glimpses of their different personalities. Like we know the one guy is just a debaucherous drunk. We know one of them has one eye and fights really well. Like we don't know too much.
And is well read.
Yes, and loves
and has BDE.
Yeah. That was the only other bit I didn't really get.
Why they're both looking for the brother?
Well, I assumed that they were going to kill. They wanted to kill him, which seemed to be.
Oh no. Who? I don't think either of them wanted.
He wanted to be the other brother and the Queen's
No, because they're the ones that get him at the end. They don't kill him.
But why did they want him?
So it's a little weird too, but I think the main thing is the Alicent, the queen, wants to get her son so that she has the upper hand against her father in deciding what will happen when he becomes king. I don't think any of that happens. I think that's kind of dumb because as soon as she hands it off for him to be king, like it doesn't matter anymore.
No. Okay, that bit makes sense to me. And that makes sense to me then why whatever his name is, her guard, is loyal to her and wants to go and get him. Why does the other son care?
I don't think he does necessarily.
Because you then saw over the course while they're looking for him, they have this discussion about the fact he should be king. He is more entitled to it. I watched that thinking and they seem to come to some agreement about that fact as it happened. And I then took it for when they are trying to take him away, that their goal was, if he can just be dead, I become king. Like, we'll just remove him. And I know that didn't, I know everyone knows that doesn't happen because obviously this is a fake history or whatever you like to call it. And some of it was discussed within Game of Thrones itself, right? So there's elements here that we know have to transpire. But that's what I presumed their intention was when they were looking for him. Then they get him. He's kind of threatening to his brother when he first grabs him. And then it's just, no, we're just going to take him now. And you other guards run off.
Yeah. I don't think he was ever going to kill him. because then the other thing too is he still doesn't even have a claim to the throne, because Aegon has kids with the sister, so they would have the claim to the throne after, if he killed Aegon.
Yeah, but I mean, we've the whole point of this, right, is that people are
Yeah.
trying to take advantage of
I
complicated
don't want to
claims to the
spoil
throne.
anything.
And, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I thought that part was kind of weird. I think it was just to kind of do like a little a little buddy cop detective hunt down for two different groups of people. I think the Eric and Eric thing is so stupid. Like, I get that's what happened in the book, but just because George R. R. Martin does annoying things to be a prick in the book doesn't mean you can't change them and make them easier. Why can't it just be Eric and Steve? Why does it have to be Eric and Arik and have them look identical? Like,
I guess I don't
make it kind of, what's the difference? Just make it easy for people.
Yeah, because you don't have that issue in a book.
Yeah, when you're reading it, it's a lot easier to figure out when one
Yes.
letter's an A and one's an E. So the only part of the episode I didn't like was the ending. And I don't like the fact that she busts through the dragon pit and has a chance to end everything and doesn't. And I don't like it. I don't like it for the fact that I don't like in shows, 3 seasons from now we can go, had she just burned them all in the beginning, she wouldn't have lost her granddaughters and these people and that people, because that's obviously what's going to happen.
Yes.
And what's really annoying is when the original Game of Thrones went off script is when it sucked. And you're already seeing now that was not anything that ever happened in the books. And they purposely put that in there because what they said was, historically, Game of Thrones had these great penultimate episodes, so we needed something big and grand to happen in this episode, and we thought, what's bigger than a dragon busting out of a pit and like going wild inside a dome, basically. And I think that's so dumb to just put that in there for like an effect.
Yeah. And you could have built it some. I mean, just her getting away with the dragon, right, would have been kind of interesting.
I'm okay with
enough.
Like, you could have ended the episode without any of that, and I still think that's the best episode of the season.
Yeah, 100%. I would agree with that. Also, I mean, how the dragon just burst through. I mean, these dragons, like their strength is incredible at times. I don't know how much. That was a lot of solid rock and concrete, stone that they had to burst through to get up in there, and then was concerned about making it through the gap of the door. It could have just flown out anywhere. Why did it have to make it through the closing door all of a sudden? And looked really, the CGI looked really bad when it went through the gap in the door. That was not well done. And overall, I'm not going to even, the CGI continues to disappoint me. And another time where it looks really bad is when they kind of have like the camera just go over the top of the city, which happens quite a bit, and it just doesn't look very good. And again, comparing it to what we're seeing in the Rings of Power. But yeah,
CGI of the dragon screaming at them though is pretty cool.
I thought that was pretty well done. Yes, that was pretty good. But then they benefit, right? That's a lot of darkness. Darkness is kind to CGI because you don't get to pick out things as much. That's the bit that just doesn't make sense. Like, it's hard to understand, like, what's her motivation for not killing them? Because it doesn't help her protect her family. You could have argued that if she'd killed them, she might have even been able to have a claim to the throne. Yeah. There's a lot of reasons why she would want to kill them. She has more of an emotional attachment in many regards to everyone else who wasn't there. Yeah. And so it's just strange that she would do all of that and then just kind of say, I could have killed you, but I'm not going to.
So inside the episode, which I also don't like that they have that they have a chance to explain what happened. If you're not doing a good enough job as a director to have people understand, I don't think you should get the chance to then go and explain it. It's a little kind of like, not fair, but it doesn't show well upon you. But their reason, this is great. Their reason was because she's of high morality and she didn't want to kill a fellow mother who was protecting her son in that moment when she stepped in front of her son. but yet she's okay with killing thousands of commoners as she busts through, and then has the dragon just whip the tail around
just
and
random
just
people.
send people like hundreds of feet to their death.
Oh, she killed at least 3,000 people.
Yeah. Oh, at least.
Many of whom would have been mothers. But the other bit I didn't get to, the hand just screaming for the doors to be closed. What was that going to help them with?
He was saying to open them.
Oh, open them. What was that even going to help them with?
To get the dragon out. He thought they were going to get stuck inside with the dragon, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, but we just saw it burst through the floor. If the
Yeah.
dragon wants to get out, the dragon's getting out. And if the dragon wants to kill you, the dragon's killing you. There's no, you are completely at the mercy of the dragon at that point.
Yeah. And I mean, good on that dragon for having the ability to scream at the top of its lungs for 45 seconds and not let even like an oopsie flame pop out.
How did she give that how did she give that command too? Like, I'd like to know how sophisticated their interactions are with the dragon. Like, because she's not talking to him, right? There's no way he could hear anything that's going on from her.
No, they do.
No, but in that instance, thousands of people screaming. How she's not giving an oral command to the dragon, you know what I mean? Like, that's not possible. So did she give him like the play-by-play before he burst through the floor?
Here's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, because there's no way unless like through a complicated series of like, it's like a horse and like rain pulls and heel clicks, he understands. Look like I'm gonna have some fire fly out, but I'm not really.
I can't imagine it's the play-by-play before, because if anyone who has a dog, you can tell your dog you're going to go outside, you're going to do this, this, and that, and then you let it off the leash, and the dog's just like half a mile down the road. Like, it's a little tough to get.
I hate to break it to you, Frank. There's some dogs that you can do that too.
Not. You don't go before you let them out and tell them what to do, and then let them loose and expect that they're going to remember what you told them.
No, but through training, there are dogs that can do very specific things, right? And maybe they previously prepared for bursting through the floor of a church, and then
this is the scenario they've practiced thousands of times.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the non-killing scenario.
Exactly. Yeah, very similar to the killing scenario. Don't mess them up.
Yeah. So the last episode, I don't watch the like coming up episodes. Your prediction, is it all now the Blacks side? Meaning the Targaryen side? Whereas this one was all just the Greens. Is the next one all just how they respond now that they find out?
Yeah, I guess there's the decision that's made in terms of whether or not they're going to try and kill from the king's perspective. Is he going to try and kill everyone else? I think he'll be talked into trying to kill everyone else. And so I guess that's how this episode unfolds. We get to find out about everyone else hearing that the king has died. And then I assume it's like immediate all-out war.
Yeah. Actually, I have one more question. What does Kristen Cole have to do to get prosecuted for a crime at this point? He's now beat up someone to no end in the middle of a wedding on the dance floor. He then has also now murdered someone in cold blood at a council meeting, which is the equivalent of like Parliament, by smashing their head through a marble.
So I read, after his first killing, I did read an article about this, and basically the King's Guard, you can't be punished for anything. Like, that's part of their...
You get sent to the wall.
If you break his oath. Like, his oath is to protect, but if, like, anything aside from that, any crime committed not in relation to that, he's fine. Like, they have carte blanche to just chop people's heads off and kill each other. Like, there is no... Like, the moment, for example, I guess in that scene where he could have gotten in trouble was when she told him to put his sword down. And that was basically, well, either if you don't put your sword down now you're breaking your oath, and then you'd be in trouble. But up until that moment, he could do... And they can't have sex. That's he's broken that one.
Yeah, he already broke that with a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
Well, let's call her 18.
I mean, he's one of those guys, right? They've made him very good looking. I don't know if in the book he's supposed to be. I don't know. But like...
Yeah. Great heel turn. Like first 3 episodes in, you're like, wow, what a nice guy. He's good
Yeah.
looking. He's
Sympathetic
really nice to
character.
Rhaenyra. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then now
He's
it's
got her
like,
back and anything.
now it's like, this is a really weird, creepy guy who becomes really obsessed with women in his life.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
he just needs to attach himself to a woman and then will just do whatever she says.
He's still got breakup issues 20 years later.
Yeah. I mean, he is what probably people in the modern world would want to call a cuck. I mean, is he the original cuck?
Christian Cuck Cole.
Yeah, there you go. Nearly done with our TV coverage because nothing really to replace it with. I know you're going to try and jokingly throw out the Mighty Ducks. It's not going to happen.
Actually, I was going to say I watched 2. Scary is the right word, but I watched Prey, which is the Predator prequel, I guess you could say. I thought was really well done, much better than a lot of the latest Predator movies that they kind of try and come out with that are really corny and not good. I was pretty into this movie. I thought it was good. And then I also watched Werewolf by Night, which is the Marvel short film about like monster hunters. It's like kind of like an ode to like the 50s horror movies. It's like all in black and white, and it kind of has like the same theme. And actually, I thought was really good too. If Marvel did more of that, I think Marvel would be a lot more respected than like the She-Hulk crap it puts out.
Yeah, I'm just out superheroed, right? Star Wars, I've been out Star Wars. I mean, I was out superheroed in about 2006. So like, this is just way too much for me at this point. But I feel like they have very much drained the well dry on all of those things, and things that should be every 2-3 years. Wow, we've got another blockbuster superhero movie out, is now new week, new show, new week, new movie. So,
well, Werewolf by Night doesn't have superheroes in it. So
sorry, werewolves.
It's got monsters, but
I can take it then. I did watch Dahmer. That was the only.
What'd you think of that?
I think it's a pretty good TV show. I almost feel bad watching it. Like it does feel a bit weird to me to like watch content that's being made out of a serial
terrible
killer.
person.
Yeah. Like, and I know that he doesn't necessarily benefit from that in any way, but still, like, if it were one of my family members or someone who I had known that he'd killed, it would just be really difficult for me to suddenly have him back in the discussion in a way that you would have hoped probably would have never happened. You know, like, you might have processed all of this stuff, and then all of a sudden the world of true crime podcasts and Netflix shows and documentaries, everyone loves Jeffrey Dahmer. Like, this Halloween, there's going to be people dressing like Jeffrey Dahmer everywhere.
Yeah, I'm actually just going to dress like Evan Peters.
But yeah, it was a good show, but I mean, my only issue was it too. Once you then start, I didn't know a ton about Jeffrey Dahmer. I just knew he was a serial killer who ate some of the people. Like, that was, that was kind of my knowledge of him. When you then start watching a show like that, you then start reading into the story a bit more. And then when you see the historical discrepancies between the show and what you're then reading, that really bothers me, which is a topic we've discussed before, right? Like, that ruins the based on a true story.
Either you keep it true or you don't.
Just fictionalize it about a serial killer then.
Yeah.
And have it loosely, it could be like, oh, this is very similar to the Jeffrey Dahmer. I would have probably been more comfortable with that overall. But to like, this is the Jeffrey Dahmer.
Would you be more comfortable with said, this show is inspired by Jeffrey Dahmer?
R.I.P.
Thanks, Jeff.
The most influential person in my life.
You're my inspiration.
Yeah. And give like an Emmy speech. We couldn't have done this without Jeffrey.
JD, I love you.
Yeah. And then just take a big bite out of like the Emmy statue. I would have probably been more comfortable with that, but you then start to see like there's main characters in that show who are nothing like the people they're like real life counterparts. And I think most people won't do that extra little bit of research, so they'll walk away from that being like, Glenda Cleveland lived directly next door to Jeffrey Dahmer and smelled and it was like she didn't even live in the same building. Arguably
Spoiler
the second
alert.
Well, that's not really a spoiler. It's not in the TV show, but like she didn't live in the same building in real life, but in the TV show, she's his next door neighbor. Why? Like apart from trying to make her a more compelling character, like kind of trying to explain that a bit more, but it's just like a weird shift. But anyway.
All right. Well, with that, I think we'll end it.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good one.
See you.
Cheerio.